I realize that it's not that exciting for me. Right now, we are live on Facebook. We're not yet live on Instagram, but we should be going to work.
Okay.
Oh, I'm super blurry on Instagram. Super clear, but I'm super blurry. I don't know. We'll try and see. Can anybody see and hear me on Instagram? Can you see anything?
Yeah, it says we're live. I'm getting messages that we're live. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Nice. Then I'll just, hey, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're like super delayed. It was like 3 minutes between when I said, can you hear me, and when you said yes.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
No, either. Well, we'll see how this video turns out this week. I am attempting to do our training program that'll put it on Facebook and YouTube too, instead of all this extra work on my part. So I thought what we about this week. This week I posted a few. One of the reels that I was a few common things that come up. So the yesterday was about who come to us after their breakup, and the dad has been involved in child care while they were together, which situation in the United States a lot of the times is that moms are carrying more of the weight with kids in the relationships. People that dads don't do anything, so calm down on that. But it does happen, and what I hear all the time as attorneys from well, he didn't make dinner, he didn't do that, and now all of a sudden he wants 50-50. And so I posted this video yesterday. Listen, that's not a basis for 50-50. And I wanted to say, and I didn't say in the video, Judge Goldenberg, who used to be on the bench and had lots of little quick sayings that shoot out to people, is done something doesn't mean they can't do something or shouldn't do something. When you're in a relationship, you guys build about who and you sort of responsibilities, and then you split up, and all of a sudden moms are like, he never actually really made dinner. So I want to hear, like, I gave that a little bit, but I wanted to hear from you conversations you have without this idea that, like, oh, he hasn't done all of these things, and so then I shine.
Yeah, so obviously you're not going to be surprised that I'm having similar conversations with our clients that you are, right? So, I mean, the reality is, what I tell them is the courts are going to at least give dad the opportunity to have the children, and let's say it's 50-50 time sharing, right? At least have the opportunity to show everyone that he is capable of at least trying to do these things, right? Like, we're not just going to assume, well, dad didn't do it when you guys were together and in the home and you were doing all of it. It wasn't the dynamic. It wasn't what was expected of him to do. He had other responsibilities. But now if he wants 50-50 time sharing, he's going to have to step up and do all the things that mom was primarily doing at the time. And so what I say to our clients is the courts are going to give him a chance, and you're going to enter into an agreement, and maybe it works, right? Maybe the dad's like, wow, I really have a lot on my plate, and I have to drive him to soccer, and I have to take him to the doctor appointments, and I have to have dinner ready, and I have to make sure they do their homework and take, showers. And it's a lot, right? And it takes them a while to get things together. All of it, right? And then remember, like, to take the project in on Monday that they had to work on over the weekend. Like, it is a lot, And so what I tell them is they have to at least give them the shot. And then if not after a day or a week or a bad weekend, if after several months it becomes apparent that he's not stepping up and he's not doing the things he needs to, and it's affecting the kids, right?
Yeah.
Because if they are continuously not bringing in the homework assignments or the projects and it's affecting their grades, like that's what I'm talking about. Not if they every once in a while skip a shower, right?
Yes.
If it's actually affecting the kids, then come back and we can have a conversation about a modification and show the court, look, we tried, we gave him the chance, and he didn't step up.
Yeah. Same. I mean, and I said yesterday, posted, what you really probably, like, if you're totally convinced that dad either can't or won't do, but there's no real basis to deny him the opportunity to try, your best bet is to agree to those terms as quickly as possible, save yourself some money, like pad it up with some provisions that can help us navigate it. You know, I mean, parenting or have more specifics if there's stuff you're like, if you're really concerned about homework, we can put provisions in there about homework and making sure that those sorts of things are important for the future. Because the reality is you can either spend $15,000 on a lawyer now to try to fight against 50-50 when you have no base. You can not do that, you know, more reasonably and move on and save your money for the modification you're going to need in a year. Doing it if you really do believe that. But I also think something else that you just said is important on like a Judge Goldenberg. One of the things she also used to say to people, and like I quote this probably times a week in our practice, judge's perspective. A judge, you know, you have all different categories of parents, right? Like you have yourself, Naz, who may be an A parent. You have me that may, right? Like you ask children dinner regularly and fold and put their laundry away and sit down with them for homework. Mine are sort of like free range, just hope that they make it through, and I yell at them directly as to where they can find food if they're having. So maybe I'm like a C parent and you're like an A parent. But what I am not is a D or an F parent, right? The parent, my kids are at school, they're mostly probably done for the most part. And if it's not because I'm them to do it. But you know, if you have parents that are feeding pizza every night for dinner and meals, you know, the kids are getting to school, but their hair's kind of hair or their clothes are mismatched, not care, or maybe they care, but they don't have the authority to debate between an A parent, right? The only place that have to differentiate F parents, right? When you're like really failing your job here, like you're just the basics. At that point, the judge can differentiate between parents. When you have a parent that's come in, two of you have been together and you've had your own dynamic and worked out who's going to do what, a judge doesn't necessarily know what the other, if they're going to be a C parent, or not going to make an assumption that somebody's going to fail at it.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that, because I also have that conversation with them about A and C and F parents. Like it's the exact same thing. And you know, interestingly enough, I can think of at least 3 clients just very quickly who have been in a situation where it was primarily mom raising the child. We end up with a parenting plan of some sort, and the dads have actually stepped up more than the mom. Like now the mom kind of looks like a B or a C parent compared to the dad, because they've come and they fix things that they didn't know as a dad at the time needed to be fixed, that mom wasn't taking care of. And so it's interesting because one's post-separation.
Yeah. I can think in my head of a couple of the ones you're thinking about. And I've seen it too, where like during the marriage, dad was kind of less involved. To me, like, you know, a marriage and parenting business, right? If I were to ask you, like, how our marketing content, you're going to be like, I have no
she
idea
records some videos all the time. They're on Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I know that it ends up on the internet and people call us.
All
I
the
have
time.
no clue what happens between here and there. And that's fine. As a business owner, it's just not your job in this particular business to do those things. You know, like if I were to go ask Henry today, what's the plan for the kids' lunch this week? He's going to look, he has no idea. He doesn't plan the kids' lunch to make sure that they have lunch. And that doesn't that he doesn't know those things. What Naz is saying really does happen. And like there's a parent, just like their role has not been to be involved in the day-to-day details of the child. They did. And two of them that I can think about off the top of my head that are our clients, they actually discovered we're having all sorts of issues that were not being addressed. Now, do I think that is okay? No. If you're a parent, then if you're not the one doing the checking, asking questions and all of those kinds of things, but sometimes they do at the end and we're all surprised. Now, what's interesting is when you get the moms on the other side, that dad stepped up and she is not happy about this situation. Because the reality
and fighting against it tooth and nail.
Really,
yep.
Yeah. Like the reality is you're calling dad a deadbeat. So dad's like, I'll step up. And then you're like, oh, could you go away? Well, no.
Yeah.
You know, if they are going to be able to be involved. So when I posted this, one of the dad, a man posted back like, you know, oh my God, why are you talking about dads? Moms do this. Well, look, moms do a lot of things. I just gave you one example. But I've been in family law since 2000, like 16 years. In 6 years, I don't think that I've ever had a mom 50-50 when she had zero intentions of using 50-50. Like, that's just not a thing that I've seen moms do. I've seen moms do a lot of things that are annoying or, you know, not in the best interest of kids, like believing that dads can't change diapers or, you know, believing that dads are not kids to school. But I for a mom, like showing up demanding 50 for reasons other than she just really wants her child. Have you ever experienced that? You have. Good. Well, I'm glad. So
yeah. I get different types of clients.
I haven't.
Yes.
For me,
yeah.
doing that.
No, I had
Tell me.
I can tell you one just because it was like mind-blowing to me, right? That all this could happen. But I had a mom and she was making all kinds of crazy allegations against dad, right? So she was making all these crazy allegations, demanding not really 50-50, demanding like majority time sharing, saying dad was like a horrible person, had been horrible to her and the kids, made horrible allegations. We went through an injunction, we went through a divorce, like we went through all these things. And when she loses the injunction, we have the divorce pending. And she was like, all right, then forget it. And she leaves and goes to another state and never came back. And I know that because dad, we end up finalizing the divorce without her. I mean, she's totally gone. Dad has 100% time sharing. And he ends up coming back years later because of like another relationship that he had. Like he got remarried years later. And so I asked him at that time, I said, hey, whatever happened with mom? He's like, she never came back. That was it. Like the kids don't talk to her. They don't hear from her. She never comes down to visit. You know, it was one of those things where she made a giant stink of things, made all these allegations. I need majority. I need sole parental. I need all these things, but she loses the injunction and then she's like, forget it. And she just leaves.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't hear that she ever came back. So that's the one that I think of. And dad's great, by the way. Like that's an example, a very clear example of mom did the majority of the child rearing when they were together, but mom leaves and he's there and he's like, I've got these kids, 3 kids, 100% of the time, and I've got to figure it out And he did. He
Yeah.
did really good with these kids, and they're great and doing well in school and everything. So that's the one example I can think of. But it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you, to have that situation where moms just kind of give up. And sometimes they'll feel defeated. Like, I get that,
Yeah.
because I've had those clients, and that's a little bit differently, right? Where the mom feels defeated and she just kind of says, forget it, I'm not going to fight it anymore. But that's the one example where I really truly don't think that woman had any intention of really ever exercising 50-50 or
Yeah.
anything more.
Which was actually to sort of segue into the rest of this conversation. And we have, I made to go back to the chat. You can't see them here, but I can see them on, and there's a couple. If you are a parent, like what now, where someone fight 50-50, then they end up getting 50-50 or whatever time sharing it is they get. Maybe they get every other weekend, whatever. But then that time sharing, they don't consistently or regularly utilize it. And this, I don't know if this reel has posted yet or not. It will short. Really, really, really important for you as the parent who is involved, who has not disappeared. If that happens, like what where the parent like fights and fights and fights for it, and then they just sort of disappear all of a sudden, you not disappear, really, really need to file, because let me tell you what's going to happen if you don't. That just disappeared in Nazarina's case. She's going to be gone for like 2 or 3 years with the kid whatsoever. Then she's going to like have another baby, get sober, whatever happens in her brain. And then suddenly she's going to show up on a Saturday and be like, hey, it's my time sharing, here to pick up the kid. You as the parent who's had the kid for 3 years and has not seen the other parent, in a kind of tricky position that's in place, says that or whatever it is that they've had, that order's never been altered. And for you, that time sharing from how you have created sort of an emergency, right? However, I can think of some reasons why you might not want to do it. Do you have any counterpoints to that?
No, I want to hear your reasons.
Well, like, because I also think they're in a situation where there's a really on the other side and they've just sort of disappeared. You feel pretty confident that they're not going to demand the child. Well, then you kind of with my camera, and I think I can fix it because I think it's my blur is blurring me. With those kinds of parents where you're sort of happy the other one disappeared because they were shitty to begin with, the boat, maybe you do just want to let it sit. But what is the flip of that is the longer that they go without any contact, the more likelihood of success you're going to have. So it is a little bit of a balance between like, how quickly do you file quickly enough so that you avoid the emergency, but you wait long enough to where you have enough history. This is not in the kid's best interest.
Yeah, and I tell my clients when I see that kind of coming and they think it's not going to happen, one of the things that I tell people is just make sure you document it as best as you can, right? Like thinking about litigating this in the future. When you have these phone calls and they say, well, I'm not coming this weekend because I've got to work or do it in writing, have a text message, use talking parents. The more documented instances that I can have to take to court about all the time sharing that they're just not exercising, the better. So I say that so people can just remember to do that, right? Like have it in an email, have it in a text message. Make sure you document every single time that they're not coming to pick up, because sometimes people give me like a journal. I get those a lot. Like here I have a notepad where I have kept track of every single instance. And although that's helpful, right? Like I'm not saying it's not helpful and it gives us a good timeline. But when you regularly see the other parents and you message saying, nah, I gotta work, or no, I can't pick them up, or no, I can't do it, it's just that much more powerful. And I also say to them, it's, if you're going to do it, don't call me 2 weeks later. Oh, he didn't pick him up this weekend. There's nothing that you can do. Really, you're going to need at least, I tell people, at least 4 to 6 months of a documented, history of them failing to do it. And then, but I have cases. I actually have a case where mom moved and we got the relocation, but like dad just never exercised his time sharing that he had gotten from the judge on this relocation parenting plan. And funny enough, that was on a temporary relocation. So we didn't finalize. And I kept saying, well, we have to finalize. And she didn't want to do it because she didn't want to rock the boat. Because dad at the time was just not even exercising the time sharing he had on the temporary relocation.
Yeah.
And that case sat for forever. And just didn't get finalized because mom just didn't want to go back to court.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's just like with most things in family law, everything is so fact specific. And that's like, it's great to be online and follow channels like ours or other lawyers to educate yourself. But with family law, you do have to really realize that everything that you're hearing is to some extent, and it depends. There's very few like super black and white things in family law, because every little fact or every little dynamic can make a big difference in a family law case in terms of like, if you've missed 3 months of time sharing, for example, like no call, no show, you just disappeared for 3 months. In one case, that may be a basis to modify or to reduce the other parent's time. Cases, it may not be because of the particular dynamics or circumstances or your particular parent. So it is super important to talk to somebody. So the next one of the questions we have is, someone is not picking 3 years old and not picking up the child in a car seat. Parenting plan that includes it's hard for me to understand that question. And I
think they're trying to not have 50-50 maybe. Like, is that enough of a basis to not give the person 50-50? Is that the question?
Maybe it's about like what they've been doing previously before they go to court. Yeah, I mean,
and I don't think not having a car seat is going to be a basis to not have the 50-50, right? Because that's one of those things where a judge will say, I'll put it in the order. They have to have a car seat until the child is of an age and size and height to not have a car seat. And they're going to have to, like, that to a judge, in my opinion, is like an easy fix. You order the car seat and that resolves that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I do think is important is, if you have been separated haven't been to court, if you have been following a sharing schedule, a lot of people presume that that's the same going to happen now that we're in. That's not necessarily true. I hear this a lot, right? Like, he's on weekend for the last 3 years, and now he's filed a paternity action. Shouldn't he continue to have every other weekend? Well, maybe not, right? Because if during that period of time he has wanted and been asking for more time, or you've been not allowing it, or he didn't know that he was entitled to more time, there are reasons why you might not do the same schedule that you've been doing. The court's going to assess it from the presumption of 50-50 to an assessment on what's going to be detrimental or in the, and maybe the fact that the every other weekend for 3 years does lend itself to continuing that as being in the best interest. Maybe the court's going to look at it and say, look, every other weekend's a good job. There's no reason for him not to have 50-50. That's the best interest of the child. So just because you've been way doesn't mean that you.
Yeah. I just had a case.
Well, yeah. No, go.
I just had a case last week where dad hadn't seen the kids for a year. It was in one of my mediations, and it's one of those things that it's an uphill battle. You have to like either prove that mom has kept the kids from you, right? Or the other side is he hasn't even asked. So if he hasn't even asked to see the kids in a year, then why is he then going to get 50-50? So, I mean, there's just so many factors that go into all of this and the analysis of it all, especially in light of the new statute.
I love that story because I find the meme because I don't remember exactly what a good meme. The extent of like when dads say she won't kids. Sir, let you. They are your children. If you are not seeing them, go do the things you need to do to them, right? Like you people who show up and are like, she hasn't let me see the kids in 3 years. I'm sorry. If there was any entity preventing me from seeing my children for 30 days, I assure you that everybody in my I have not seen my kids for 30 days because some person has stopped me. So when you show it's been 3 years, but it's not my fault. She just wouldn't let me see. Like I would say probably 30, 60, 90 days into that for you to put in that phone call to someone. Person is preventing me from seeing do something about it. You don't wait 3 years and then act like, well, it's all her fault because she hasn't been letting me see the kids. No, sir.
I agree with you. Yep.
And I think that's super annoying. And it's also very, very like the number of times that you will hear the other parent doesn't let me see. I just heard it in mediation. Yeah, I'm sorry. For 5 years, you guys were married. You separated. This is like there's nothing. I haven't seen your kids in all these years because letting you. And in that particular case, by the way, the dad was a professional athlete. It's not like he didn't have the resource what he needed to be able to see his children. That's just not that he decided to choose. So I'm going to try this again next week with a different setup and see if it works in this one.
All right.